How's your whiskey, man?
Professing themselves to be wise, they become fools, who change the truth of God into a lie. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, and likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the women, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly. St. Paul, Romans 1. He slipped into a corner booth away from the dancing men, where it was quietest, where the odors of musk and frangipani hung less heavenly in the air. A slender lamp glowed softly in the booth. He turned it down to where only the club's blue overheads filtered through the beaded curtain, diffusing, blurring the image thrown back by the mirrored walls of his light, thin-boned handsomeness. Yes, sir." The bar boy stood through the beads and stood smiling, clad in golden sequin trunks. His greased muscles seemed to roll in independent motion, like fat snakes beneath his naked skin. "Whiskey," Jesse said. He caught the nonchalant grin, the broad white tooth crescent that formed on the young man's face, tried to control the flow of blood to his cheeks. "Yes, sir," running his thick tanned fingers over his solar plexus, tapping the fingers, making them hop in a sinuous dance. He hesitated, still smiling, this time questioningly, hopefully, a smile drenched in admiration and desire. The finger dance, the accepted symbol, stopped. The pudgy brown digits curled into angry fists. "Right away, sir." Jesse watched him turn. Before the beads had tinkled together, he watched the handsome athlete make his way imperiously through the crowds, shaking off the tentative hands of single men at the tables, ignoring the many desired symbols directed towards him. That shouldn't have happened. Now the fellow's feelings were hurt. If hurt enough, he would start thinking, wondering, and that would ruin everything. No, it must be put right. Jesse thought of Mina, of the beautiful Mina. It was such a rotten chance. It had to go right. "Your whiskey, sir," the young man said. His face looked like a dog's face, large and sad. His lips were a pouting blot of line. Jesse reached into his pocket for some change. He started to say something nice. "It's paid for, sir," the barboy said. He scowled and laid a card on the table and left. The card carried the name E.J. Hobart, embossed in lavender ink. Jesse heard the curtains tinkle.
"Hello. I hope you don't mind me barging in like this, but you didn't seem to be with anyone."
The man was small, chubby and bald. His face had a dirty growth of beard and it looked out of tiny eyes encased in bulging contacts. He was bare to the waist. His white hairless chest dropped and turned into folds at the stomach. Softly, more subtly than the barboy had done, he put his porky stubs of fingers into a suggestive rhythm, and Jesse smiled. "Thanks for the drink," he said. "But I really am expecting someone."
"Oh,"
the man said.
"Someone special?"
"Yeah, pretty special," Jesse said smoothly. Now that the words had become automatic. "He's my fiancé."
"I see."
The man frowned momentarily and then brightened.
"Well, I thought to myself, I said, EJ, A beauty like that couldn't have very well be unattached. But well, it would certainly be worth a try. I'm sorry.
It's perfectly alright, Jesse said. The predatory little eyes were rolling, the fingers dancing in one last-ditch attempt. Good evening, Mr. Herbert. Bluey veins showed under the whiteness of the man's nearly feminine mame. Jesse felt slightly amused this time. It was the other kind. The intent ones. The humorless ones like the bar boy that repulsed him, turned him ill. Made him want to take a knife and carve unspeakable ugliness into his own smooth, aesthetic face. The man turned and waddled away crabwise. The club was becoming more crowded. It was getting later, and heads full of liquor shook away the inhibitions of the earlier hours. Jesse tried not to watch, but he had long given up trying to rid himself of his fascination. So he watched the men together. The pair over in the far corner pressing close together, dancing with their bodies, never moving their feet, swaying in some slow, lissome movements to the music, their tongues twisting in the air, jerking like pink snakes, contracting to 2 points and curling invitingly, barely making touch, then snapping back. The tongue dance. The couple seated by the bar, one a beast, the other a hunter. The beast old, his cheeks caked hard and cracked with powder and lineaments, the perfume rising from his body like steam. The hunter, young but handsome, the fury evident in his eyes, the hurt anger at having to make do with the beast from time to time. He would look around, wetting his lips in shame. And those two just coming in, dressed in mother's uniforms, tanned, mustached, proud of their station. Jesse held the beads apart. Mina must come soon. He wanted to run from this place, out into the air and into the darkness and silence. No. He just wanted Mina, to see her, to touch her, listen to the music of her voice. Two women came in, arm in arm, beast and hunter, and drunk. They were stopped at the door, angrily, shrilly, and told to leave. The manager swept by Jesse's booth, muttered about them, asking why they should want to come dirtying up the phallus with their presence when they had their own section, their own clubs. Jesse pulled his head back inside. He'd gotten used to the light by now, so he closed his eyes against his multiplied image. The distorted sounds of love got louder, the sing-song syrup of voices, deep, throaty baritone falsetto. It was crowded now. The orgies would begin before long, and the couples would pair off for the cubicles. He hated the place, but close to orgy time and you didn't get noticed here. And where else would you go? Outside, where every inch of pavement was patrolled electronically, every word a conversation, every movement recorded, cataloged, and filed? Damn Knutson. Damn that little man. Thanks to him, to the senator, Jesse was now a criminal. Before it wasn't so bad, not this bad, anyway. You were laughed at and shunned and fired from your job. Sometimes kiddos lobbed stones at you, but at least you weren't hunted. Now, it was a crime, a sickness. He remembered when Knutson had taken over. It had been one of the little man's first telecasts. In fact, it was the platform that got him the majority vote.
Vice is on the upswing in our city. In the dark corners of every unit, preservations blossom like an evil flower. Our children are exposed to its stink, and they wonder, our children wonder, why nothing is done to put a halt to this disgrace. We have ignored it long enough. The time has come for action, not mere words. The perverts who infest our lands must be fleshed out, eliminated completely, as a threat not only to public morals, but to society at large. These sick people must be cured and made normal. The disease that throws men and women together in this dreadful abnormal relationship that leads to acts of retrogression. Retrogression that will, unless it is stopped and stopped fast, push us inevitably back to the status of animals. This is to be considered as any other disease. It must be conquered as heart trouble, cancer, polio, schizophrenia, paranoia. All other diseases have been conquered.
The women's senator had taken Knudsen's lead and issued a similar pronunciamento, and then the bill became law, and the law was carried out. Jesse sipped at the whiskey, remembering the hunts, how the frenzied mobs had gone through the city at first, chanting, yelling, bearing place cards with slogans, "Wipe out the heteros, kill the queers, make our city clean again," and how they'd lost interest finally after the passion had worn down and the novelty had ended. But they had killed many, and they had sent many more to the hospitals. He remembered the nights of running and hiding, choking dry breath glued to his throat, heart rattling and loose. He had been lucky. He didn't look like a hetero. Instead, you could tell one just by watching him walk. Jesse walked correctly. He fooled them. He was lucky. And he was a criminal. He, Jesse Four Martin, no different from the rest. Too born and machine nursed, raised in the charter schools like everyone else, was terribly different from the rest. It had happened. His awful suspicions had crystallized. On his first formal date, the man had been a rocketeer, the best high quality, even out of the hunter class. Mother had arranged it carefully. There was the dance, and then the ride into the space sled. The big man had put his arm around Jesse and Jess knew. He knew for certain, and it made him very angry and very sad. He remembered the days that came after the knowledge. Bad days. Days fallen upon evil. Black desires and deep cord frustrations. He tried to find a friend at the crooked clubs that flourished then, but it was no use. There was a sensationalism, a bravura to these people that he could not love. The sight of men and women together, too, shocked the parts of him he could not change and repulsed him. Then the vice squads had come and closed up the clubs, and the heteros were forced underground, and he never sought them out again or saw them. He was alone. The beads tinkled. "Jess?" He looked up quickly, afraid. It was Mina. She wore a loose man's shirt, an old hat that hid her golden hair. Her face was shadowed by the turned-up collar. Through the shirt, the rise and fall of her breasts could be faintly detected. She smiled once, nervously. Jesse looked out the curtain, and without speaking, he put his hands about her soft, thin shoulders and held her like this for a minute. "Mina." She looked away. He pulled her chin forward and ran a finger along her lips. Then he pressed his body to hers, tightly touching her neck, her back kissing her forehead, her eyes, and kissing her mouth. And they sat down. I sought for words, and the curtain parted. "Dear," Jesse said, winking at the bar boy, who tried to come closer to see the one loved by this thin, handsome man. "Yes, sir." The bar boy looked at Mina very hard, but she had turned and he could see only the back. Jesse held his breath. The bar boy smiled contemptuously then. A smile that said, "You're insane. I was hired for my beauty. See my chest, look, a pectoral vision, my arms strong, my lips, come. Were there ever such sensuous ones? And you turn me down for this bag of bones?" Jesse winked again, shrugged suggestively, and danced his fingers. Tomorrow, my friend. I'm stuck tonight. Can't help it. Tomorrow. The bar boy grinned and left. In a few moments, he returned with the beer. On the house, he said, for Mina's benefit. She turned only when Jesse said softly, It's all right. He's gone. Jesse looked at her. Then he reached over and took off the hat. Blonde hair rushed out and over the rough shirt. She grabbed for the hat. We mustn't, she said. Please, what if someone should come in? No one will come in. I told you that. But what if... I don't know. I don't like it here. The man at the door, he almost recognized me, but he didn't. Almost, though. And then what? Forget it, Mina. For God's sake, let's not quarrel. She calmed. I'm sorry, Jesse. It's only that this place makes me feel... What? Dirty, she said defiantly. You don't believe that, do you? No, I don't. I just want to be alone. With you. Jesse took out a cigarette and started to use the lighter. Then he cursed and threw the vulgarly shaped object under the table and crushed the cigarette. You know that's impossible, he said. The idea of separate units for homes had disappeared, to be replaced by giant dormitories. There were no more parks, no country lanes. There was no place to hide at all, thanks to Senator Knudsen, to the little bald crest of this new sociological wave. This is all we have, Jesse said, throwing a sardonic look around the booth, with its carved symbols and framed pictures of entertainment stars, all naked and leering. They were silent for a time, hands interlocked on the tabletop. Then the girl began to cry. I can't go on like this, she said. I know it's hard, but what else can we do? Jesse tried to keep the hopelessness out of his voice. Maybe, the girl said, we have to go underground like the rest. And hide there? Like rats? Jesse said. We're hiding here, Mina said. Like rats. Besides, Parker's getting ready to crack down. And I know Mina. I work at Central Dome after all. In a little while, there won't be any underground. I love you, the girl said, leaning forward, parting her lips for a kiss. Jesse, I do. She closed her eyes. No. Why won't they leave us alone? Why? Just because we're Mina. I told you. They'll never use that word. It isn't true. We're not the queers. You've got to believe that. Years ago, it was normal for men and women to love each other. They married and had children together. That's the way it was. Don't you remember anything of what I've told you? The girl sobbed. Of course I do, but darling, that was a long time ago. Not so long ago. Where I work, listen to me. They have books. You know, I told you about books. I've read them, Mina. I learned what the words meant from other books. It's only been since the use of artificial insemination, not even 500 years ago. Yes, dear, the girl said. I'm sure, dear. Mina, stop that. We are not the unnatural ones, no matter what they say. I don't know exactly how it happened. Maybe as women gradually became equal to men in every way, or maybe solely because of the way that we're born, I don't know. But the point is, darling, the whole world was like us once. Even now, look at the animals. Jesse, don't you dare talk as if we're those horrid dogs and cats and things. Jesse sighed. He tried so often to tell her, to show her, but he knew exactly what she thought. That she felt that she was exactly what the authorities told her that she was. God, maybe that's how all of them thought. All the crooked people. All the abnormal ones. The girl's hands caressed his arms, and touch became suddenly repugnant to him. Unnatural. Terribly unnatural. Jesse shook his head. Forget it, he thought. Never mind. She's a woman and you love her, and there's nothing wrong in that. Or am I insane? Person of old days who was insane because he was so sure he wasn't insane because...
Well, disgusting!
It was the fat little man, the smiling masher, EJ2 Hobart. But he wasn't smiling now. Jesse got up and quickly stepped in front of Mina.
What do you want? I thought I told you.
The man pulled the metal disc from his trunks.
Vice squad friend,
he said.
You better sit down.
The disc was pointed at Jesse's belly. The man's arm was out of the curtain. Two men came in, holding discs.
I've been watching you quite a while, mister,
the man said.
Quite a while.
Look, Jesse said, I don't know what you're talking about. I work at Central Dome, and I'm seeing Miss Smith here on some business.
Yes? We know all about that kind of business, the man said. All right, I'll tell you the truth. I forced her to come here. Mister, didn't you hear me? I've said I've been watching you all evening. Let's go.
One man took Mina's arm roughly, and the other two began to propel Jesse out through the club. Heads turned, tangled bodies moved embarrassingly.
All right,
the little fat man said, his white skin glistening with perspiration.
It's all right, folks. Go on back to whatever it is you were doing.
He grinned and tightened his grasp on Jesse's arm. Mina didn't struggle. There was something in her eyes. It took Jesse a long time to recognize it. Then he knew. He knew what she had come to tell him tonight. That even if they didn't or hadn't been caught, she would have submitted to the cure voluntarily. No more worries then. No more guilt. No more meeting at midnight dives, feeling shame and feeling dirt. Mina didn't meet Jesse's look as they took her out into the street.
You'll be okay,
the fat man was saying. He opened the wagon's doors.
They've got it down pat now. Couple days in the ward and one short session with the doctors and take out a few glands and make a few injections, attach a few wires in your head and turn on a machine and presto, you'll be surprised.
The fat officer leaned close, his sausage fingers dancing wildly near Jesse's face.
Why, it'll make a new man out of you,
he said. Then they closed the doors and locked them. Yoshiko was accustomed to sending her husband off to work at 10 each morning. Having at least gained her freedom, she would then make her way to the study which she shared with him and shut herself within its walls, whereupon she busied herself on a lengthy piece that she would write for the summer special edition of K magazine. Elegant in structure and beloved by her fans, Yoshiko maintained a reputation enough that even her husband's lofty position as the secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs paled by comparison. It seemed like every day that she was inundated with letter after letter from her innumerable worshippers. Today as well, as she sat down before her study desk, she made sure to glance through the fresh pile of letters from faceless admirers before beginning her work. Each one was as trite and uninteresting as the last, but Yoshiko, in her warm feminine consideration, would nevertheless read through every message directed to her, regardless of what it was. After first dispatching with the simpler missives, a pair of envelopes and a postcard, she was left with what appeared to be a rather bulky manuscript sealed in a large envelope. Yoshiko had not received any notice of such a delivery, but even so, having an unsolicited manuscript sent to her was a fairly common occurrence in and itself. The majority of such items were invariably dry, long-winded things. Despite this, Yoshiko determined to read the title at least, and so, slitting the envelope open, she retrieved the bundles of papers and looked at the first line. It was bound with the unusual manuscript stationery, as expected. What was unexpected was how it began. Where one would expect a title or author to be displayed, instead, Yoshiko saw a line of greeting. "Dear Madam," it read. Well then, she thought, this must be some form of a letter after all. As she casually scanned the next few lines, however, she felt a strange sense of foreboding creep over her. Still, her innate curiosity aroused. She quickly read onwards, despite her growing unease. It read as follows. "Dear Madam, I beg that you forgive my presumptiveness in sending this unexpected letter where I am sure you do not know me. What I am about to tell you will no doubt come as a surprise, but I must confess to you the strange and terrible crimes that I have committed. For the past few months, I have lived as a demon, hiding from the gaze of my fellow man. Consequently, there is nobody on this earth who knows the foul deeds that I have done. I have hoped to continue this wretched existence forever, never to return to the human sphere. I know not what change has stolen over my heart, but I am now driven to confess my wretched tale to another soul. I understand that, even having said all this, my story will surely sound like the ravings of a madman, but I implore you, dear madam, to read this letter until the end. By the end of my story, it will become clear why I feel this way, and why I sent this confession to be read by you, and no other. Now then, where to begin? It is a tale so far detached from the realm of civilization and so utterly fantastical that it feels to me absurd to chronicle it with such mundane tools as pen and paper. Still, I suppose such concerns are no matter. I will start from the beginning and follow the events in order as they occurred. I was extraordinarily hideous from birth. I must stress this fact. For if you were to indulge this hopeless wretch's wish and meet me in person, you would surely faint in terror at my horrible visage, maybe all the more ghastly by my long years of neglect, if not for my warning. And oh, what an unlucky wretch that I am. For as hideous as I was, within my breast burned a passion just as hot. I was a poor workman with the face of a monster, but in my heart I nurtured dreams as luxurious and opulence that shone brightly enough to nearly blot out the sad reality of my existence. If I had been born to a wealthy man, I surely would have drowned in various pleasures and thus lessened the burden of my grotesque features. Or perhaps if I had more talent in the artistic realm, I could have forgotten the bland world around me through the comforts of verse. Alas, I was allowed neither of these blessings, and I grew up the destitute son of a carpenter, inherited my father's work when he died, and henceforth passing my days in unchanging tedium. My specialty was in making chairs of all kinds. My chairs would never fail to please even the most critical of clients, and within the industry, my reputation earned me no shortage of special commissions. With these commissions would come some requests for special decorations for the backs and legs, and each client had their own preference regarding the texture of the seat cushions or various other details. An amateur could hardly imagine the pains it took to satisfy every demand, every whim. But for all the pain and pleasure was still greater. Perhaps it was impudent of me to say so, but the accomplishments that the artist feels at seeing his work finished before him could hardly be compared to the intense gratification that washed over me with each completed piece. As I finished each chair, I would always first sit in it myself to test it, despite my uniformly bland existence as a craftsman. This one actively never failed to fill me with an unspeakable satisfaction. I felt that no matter what manner of nobleman or beauty should ultimately sit upon this chair, it would be in a truly glorious residence worthy of the presence. The world would be set with oils by Van Gogh and Monet. Crystal chandeliers would cascade from the ceilings, festooned with brilliant cut gemstones. On the floor, a Turkish rug, stretching from corner to corner. And finally on the table before the chair, my chair, a vase of exotic flowers bursting in full bloom, filling the room with their sweet fragrance. As I basked in these visions, I felt almost as if I were the master at the very palace, and I was filled with an indescribable happiness and contentment. These fruitless delusions only grew stronger with time. I, no more than a poor, hideous craftsman in life, could become a prince, sitting in my own magnificent chair. And always in these fantasies, at my side would appear my sweetheart, angelic and smiling as she listened to my every word. And that was not all. In my dreams, I would take her hand in mine, and we would even whisper sweet nothings to each other. These moments never lasted long. Always there would be the shrill call of the nearby innkeeper or the hysterical sobbing of some ailing child to rend apart the rosy tapestry of my dreams and drag me awake. I was immediately faced with the bleak features of my loathsome reality and my own hideousness, so far from the prince that I was mere moments ago, and the angel who was so sweetly showering her smiles upon me. Where was I to find such a being? Here, even the nannies, covered in grime from head to toe from playing with their charges, would hardly deign to see so much as a glance in my direction. My chair alone was left to me, a last vestige of that happy reverie. Even then, I knew this chair would soon be carried off to some faraway place, to a world entirely separate from my own. Thus, with each chair that I finished, I would beseech with indescribable sadness. That terrible, unspeakable, horrible feeling only grew with time, and soon it was all too much for me to bear. If I should be forced to live the rest of my days like this, as a lowly maggot, why, I would rather die instead, I resolved. Whether I was chiseling wood into shape, driving in nails, or mixing heady paints into a bucket, my mind remained fixed on this thought. But wait, if I should die anyway, if I should have determination enough to end my own existence anyway, perhaps there is another way after all. And so my thoughts gradually began to turn into a far more sinister direction. It was precisely at this time that I received a commission for a set of large leather armchairs, a type that I had never created before. This particular order came from a foreign-run hotel in the same city of Y where I lived. Normally such orders would be imported from their home country, but the company that I worked for had worked to convince their owners that the skill of their Japanese craftsmen could catch any imported wares. As the result of their long negotiation, this order eventually made its way to me. The weight of this responsibility drove me to forgo sleep and food as I tended to the creation of these chairs. I was truly, utterly devoted to my task, pouring my heart and soul into every moment of my work. As I gazed upon the finished chairs, I felt a satisfaction unlike any that I had ever experienced. I was taken away by the results of my own labor. And then, as was my custom, I took one of the seat of 4 that I had made, brought it into the next room where the evening sunlight was filtered in through the windows, and lowered myself into the seat. And what a comfortable chair it was. The seat cushions was at once luxuriously voluptuous, yet neither too soft nor too firm. The upholstering, a simple undying gray suede, was a heavenly texture. The thickly padded back was angled at the perfect incline to gently support my own. The armrests were elegantly arched and rose delicately to meet the occupant's wrists. Each fiber of the chair seemed to come together in a sublime harmony, as if to embody the word comfort in every sense, as it gently embraced its occupant. I sat deep into the chair, blissfully stroking the armrests with both hands. As inevitably as in the past, my vision began to fill with vibrant scenes one after another, bursting forth like a rainbow before me. This was beyond a simple daydream, and I felt I must at least be hallucinating. Even though that visited my mind playing out in vivid detail before my very eyes. Every thought that visited my mind played out in vivid detail before my very eyes, so much that I felt a vague sensation of dread at the spectacle. As I sat there in this state, a terrible and wonderful idea arose unbidden into my mind. I thought then that I understood what Eve felt when the fell serpent whispered into her ear. This idea was at once wilder than my furthest fantasies and dreadful beyond compare. Yet before long, this dread turned to fascination, and I found myself unable to resist its temptation. At first, I simply did not want to relinquish this beautiful chair that I had poured so much labor into. I wished nothing more than to forever go with it wherever it may be taken. But as I dozed, carried on by the wings of my fantasies, this idea continued to spread its insidious roots within my mind, and before long, it bore a terrible fruit. I must have lost my mind then. This vision was the extent of madness, yet I determined then to see it to reality. I quickly selected the best of the 4 chairs and smashed it to pieces, and then I carefully remade it in such a way to suit my grotesque intentions. It was an extremely large armchair, covered in leather at every surface from top to bottom. Beside that, the back and the armrests were of unusual thickness, such that the hollow cavern enclosed by these parts was spacious enough that if a man were to hide inside of it, it would be impossible to tell if he were there from the outside. This space, of course, was filled with sturdy beams of wood and a multitude of springs that I carefully arranged so that if I placed my legs in the spot where a person would sit and positioned my head and torso into the back rest, sitting right into the pose of the chair, I had enough space to hide within. Such modifications were my specialty, and I was able to include my conveniences into my design as well. For example, I left a gap in the leather, invisible from the outside, to let in air and sounds into my hiding space. In the back rest next to my head, I constructed a little shelf on which I stacked bottles of water and a hardtack. For certain purposes, I also included a large rubber bag in the seat of the chair. This and countless other considerations went into my work, so that when I finished, I could remain hidden in the chair for 2 or 3 days on end without any inconvenience. In a sense, the chair had become a tiny room housing a single occupant. I stripped it down to a single shirt and, by way of a trapdoor that I had installed underneath the chair, slid into the space and prepared within. It was truly a strange sensation, sitting in the stifling darkness. I felt as if I had crawled into a crypt instead. Now, as I think about it, it truly was no different than a tomb. For I crept into the chair, as if donning the helm of Hades. I was completely and utterly vanished from the realm of my fellow man. Before long, a dispatch from the company arrived in a rather large truck to claim the set of 4 chairs. My apprentice, the 2 of us lived alone in the residence, oblivious to the truth, helped the man move the chairs out. As they lifted my chair into the bed of the truck, one of the workmen groaned from the weight, and I felt my heart race within the little enclosure. Still, a heavy armchair is nothing unusual in and itself, and soon enough, I felt the rumbling of the truck announce our departure. I was extremely anxious during this entire trip, but by the afternoon, the chair that I was in had been installed without issue in one of the hotel's rooms. I later learned that this room was not a private quarter, but rather a lounge where people came and went frequently, visiting occasionally to meet with guests or read a newspaper and smoke a cigarette. No doubt that you have already guessed by now my intentions. I waited for the room to be empty of people before leaving my hideous spot and sneaking around the hotel, looking to steal what I needed. After all, who could imagine such a ridiculous thing as a person hiding inside of a chair? I was a shade among men, free to pillage from room to room as I pleased, and by the time people began to raise an alarm, I simply returned to my spot within the chair, listening with glee to their inept attempts to find me. Have you ever been to shore and seen a type of crab called the hermit crab? It appears as if like a giant spider, and when people are nowhere around, it struts about the shore as if it were king of its kind. The moment it hears the footsteps of a person approaching, it disappears into its shell with amazing speed. There, it ever so slightly stretches its ugly spine claws out before the safety of its shell and waits for its enemy to leave. In that moment, I was truly a hermit crab myself. In lieu of a shell, I had my chair, and instead of the shore, I strutted about the halls of the hotel. In any case, for all that my plan was preposterous and removed from the realm of common sense, and indeed because of this, it succeeded marvelously. By the third day after arriving at the hotel, my thievery had become routine to me. The fear of capture and the thrill of success, combined with the pleasure I derived from hearing the hotel staff scurry here and there, never realizing that the target of their pursuit was mere inches away, proved intoxicating. Unfortunately, I do not have time to go into detail about these adventures. I soon discovered a strange new pleasure, far more fulfilling than mere thievery. It is for the confession of this deed that I write this letter. I must reverse the story a few days when my chair was first placed in the lounge of the hotel. For a while after my arrival, the owners of the hotel came in one after another to test the quality of the chair, and they eventually left, and the silence fell over the room. I thought that the room must be empty, but I was too afraid to leave my chair so soon after my arrival. For a long time, or at least this is how it felt, I strained my ears to catch even the slightest noise as I waited. After remaining like this for some time, I heard what sounded like heavy footsteps echoing from what I assumed was the hallway. When the footsteps came as close as 3 yards, the thick carpet that covered the floor of the room muffled them so that I could barely hear. But before long, I heard the ragged breathing of a man. Just as I realized what was about to happen, the heavy body of a large European man slammed into my lap and bounced 2 or 3 times. My thighs were separated from his vast buttocks by only a thin layer of suede, and I could feel his body heat permeate through the thin barrier. His broad shoulders leaned back exactly where my chest was, and his bulky hands stacked on top of mine across the leather. It seemed that he was smoking a cigar. I could smell a thick, masculine aroma wafting through the gaps in the leather into my little space. Dear madam, I ask that you imagine yourself in my situation at that moment. It is truly a spectacle bizarre beyond belief. I was beside myself in terror, trying desperately to make myself as small as possible as cold sweat dripped from my armpits. I felt my mind go blank, and I sat there in a daze as time passed. This man was the first of many visitors, who each came and sat down on my lap, before rising and immediately being replaced by another. Not a one realized that I was there, that the soft cushion beneath them was actually the thighs of a man hiding inside the chair. A pitch-black world, locked in all the sides by leather. What a mysterious allure this world held. From inside the walls, humans seemed alien and obscure, far removed from the typical qualities one would associate with humanity. They were reduced to nothing more than a collection of voices, breathing, footsteps, rustling cloth, and a number of round, bouncy mounds of flesh. I found that I was able to identify each of them not by sight, but by touch. One of them was grossly fat and had a texture of rotten fish. Another one was the exact opposite, an extremely skinny individual that felt indistinguishable from a skeleton. Besides that, I became familiar enough with the spines, shoulder blades, arms, thighs, and tailbones of various people that came and went, no matter how similar in stature they were. The sum of this data allowed me to isolate the peculiarities of each and every one. There is no doubt in my mind that human beings can be identified by the texture of their bodies no less precisely than their faces or their fingerprints. The same can be said for the opposite sex. Normally, one would judge potential patterns by their appearance, but within the world of this chair, such considerations were nearly out of the question. All that existed here was the naked flesh, the voice, and the smells. Dear Madam, I hope that I do not offend you with my extreme frankness. In that chair, I fell deeply and fervently in love with a woman's body. Indeed, she was the first woman to sit down on my chair. If I were to imagine from her voice, she was a rather young maiden from a foreign land, and at that moment, nobody else was in the room. She seemed happy about something or other and was humming a strange tune as her footsteps entered the room with almost a dancing cadence. Right when I estimated that she had reached the foot of the chair in which I lay hidden, she suddenly flung her bountiful yet graceful body upon my lap. Then she seemed to recall something humorous, as she began to laugh out loud and beat her legs and hands against the cushions, wriggling about like a fish caught in a net. For nearly a half hour following this, she continued to move on top of my lap, occasionally singing a song and matching the rhythm with the little wiggles of her heavy body. This was truly an unimaginable situation for myself. I had considered women to be objects of either worship or fear, having spent my entire life avoiding meeting their gazes with my own. But now, here was a woman that I had never met, from a country that I had never been to, in the same room, on the same chair as me. I was pressed so closely to her that I could feel the warmth of her skin through the thin layer of suede between us. Oblivious to all this, she was reclining in the most leisurely fashion with her full body weight resting on me. From within the chair, I could pretend that I was embracing her from behind. I could shower kisses upon her graceful neck from behind the leather. In fact, I was free to do whatever I wanted. Upon this startling realization, I completely forgot my initial object of stealing and instead simply indulged in this new and strange world of sensation. I thought to myself, is this the world within the chair or not? In fact, my true and proper home? An ugly, cowardly man such as myself was surely doomed to a life of inferiority and shame out there in the world of light. And yet, in this new world, by simply enduring the cramped space within this chair, that same man could draw close, hear the voices of, and even touch the skin of such beautiful woman who would never forgive his presence in the bright world outside. A love, springing from within the chair. Such a mysterious, intoxicating sensation could surely be understood by no one who had not crept into the chair himself. It is love composed exclusively of hearing, touching, and the slightest degree of smell. A love found only in the world of darkness, never to be seen in this world. This is, without a doubt, a temptation that belongs to the realms of demons and devils. In fact, I can only imagine what manner of terrible and eldritch matters are conducted in the dark corners of this world, hidden away from the eyes of man. It goes without saying that my intention was, at first, to simply steal what I needed and quit the hotel immediately. Having discovered this all too foreign pleasure, however, I found myself far from leaving, and instead I declared the chair my permanent residence, and continued in this manner with some time. On my nightly expeditions, I took great pains to ensure that I remained silent and invisible, and so I was in no danger of discovery. Even still, I am amazed by how long I was able to maintain my residence within the chair. Never once throughout the long months attracted the suspicion of any passerby. Night and day, I kept my arms and legs bent within the cramped space inside the chair. My body went numb from this abuse, and I eventually found myself unable to fully straighten. Consequently, when I left my hiding spot and made my way to the kitchen or toilets, I did so on all fours, crawling around on the ground. What madness must have overtaken me then? For even I endured such suffering. I never once thought to abandon the strange and wonderful world of touch. There were the occasional guests who took up residence in the hotel for 1 or 2 months at a time, but as with any hotel, there was a constant flux of visitors coming and leaving. The objects of my own strange love would likewise inevitably shift in time with the flow of guests. Each one left her indelible impression in my heart, but whereas normally these would be associated with a face, their physiques instead were imprinted in my memory. There was one as sprightly as a colt, with a lithe, compact frame. Another was a snake, her body constantly wriggling voluptuously. One woman was like a rubber ball, possessed a body of endless girth and elasticity. Yet another felt as robust as a Greek statue, her body solid and perfectly balanced above me. And there were so many more, each with her own unique traits and her peculiar allure. As my attention was thus constantly drawn from each woman to the next, the days brought a number of completely unrelated experiences. The first was when an ambassador from a large European nation, I learned this fact from the passing conversation of the Japanese staff, placed his immense frame squarely upon my lap. Eventually, he was known more as a poet than a politician, but for his frame, I felt pride as much as excitement at the opportunity to become acquainted with the touch of his skin. He spoke with 2 or 3 of his countrymen for only about 10 minutes before standing and leaving. Of course, I had no clue as to what the topic of conversation was, but with every gesture, he would shift around as well. This, combined with an unusually warm body temperature, produced an almost ticklish sensation that eludes description. At that moment, I suddenly thought, what if? What if I were to take a sharp knife and plunge it through the thin leather, pierce through the man's heart? Of course, such a wound would surely be fatal. The political spheres, both in his home country and in Japan, would be in a frenzy over such an event. Newspapers would fill their front pages with headlines of his tragedy. Furthermore, his death would not only impact the diplomatic relationships between his own country and mine, but to lose a man of his talent would no doubt deal a grievous blow to the world of art as well. In my hand, I held the power to bring about such a disaster. And as I thought this, I could not surpass a strange glee that overtook me. The other incident was when a famous dancer from some foreign country arrived in Japan, and by chance, checked into that very hotel and sat in my chair. That moment left a strong impression, much like to the time with the diplomat, but even more so, for this woman sent through the leather a sensation of the most ideal proportions, unlike any that I had ever experienced. I felt myself so swept away by her beauty that any impure thoughts were driven from my mind, and I simply admired her as one does a fine work of art. These were only a few of the various rare and bizarre, even uncanny experiences that filled my days. But the purpose of this letter is to not chronicle them here in detail. My tale has gone on quite long enough as it is, and so I shall cut to the heart of the matter. It has been a number of months since I first arrived in the hotel when my living situation experienced a shift. For some reason or another, the hotel owners returned to their home country, leaving the hotel, furniture and all, in the custody of a Japanese company. This company rejected the opulent nature of its inheritance and so made plans to transform the hotel into one that could appeal to the more mainstream client. Expensive furniture and other items that thus lost their value to the company were auctioned off by a larger retailer. Among those items listed for auction was my own chair. At first, I was disappointed to learn of this fact, and then I thought the use of this chance to return to the company of my fellow man once more and begin a new life for myself. By this point, I had saved up a considerable sum from my thieving habits, so much so that if I were to return to society, I would never be at risk of falling back to that penury which I had left behind. Still, I reflected on my situation. I realized that although leaving the hotel behind was certainly a disappointment in any sense, it opened up a new hope entirely. The hope sprung from my experience these past few months. I had loved many and various women throughout my stay, yet because these were all foreign women, no matter how lovely or how delightful their bodies were, I was always left with a sense of wanting something more. Could it be that, in the end, we Japanese are unable to feel true love for anything except our fellow Japanese? This thought gradually solidified within my heart, and that time, my chair was being presented for auction. Perhaps this time it would be claimed by a Japanese buyer and placed in a household among other Japanese people. This became my new hope. I decided that, in any case, I would continue to live my life within the chair for a little while longer. The 2 or 3 days I spent in the store awaited auction were truly stifling and unpleasant. To my relief, once the auction began, a buyer immediately appeared for my chair. Old as it was still a fine chair, quickly drawing the attention of many. The buyer was some government official from the metropolitan area not far from Y City. I felt quite ill as I was constantly jostled and shaken into the truck that carried my chair the few miles from the warehouse to the buyer's residence. But this was nothing compared to the joy that I felt knowing that the buyer was Japanese, just as I had hoped. The official was the owner of a rather splendid home, and I was soon placed within a spacious study in the main estate. To my intense satisfaction, I discovered that this study was not often used by the husband himself, but rather mostly visited by his beautiful young wife. And for nearly a month from that day forward, I was never apart from her, barring only the times when she retired to the dining room or to bed. Her graceful form was always right above mine. This was because the wife was constantly in the study, engrossing in her writing. It goes without saying that I loved her dearly. Not only was she the first Japanese woman that I encountered, but her body was of truly exquisite beauty, and for the first time in my life, I felt true love. By comparison, none of the experiences in the hotel could be worthy of the title of love. As proof of this, I had never once thought to do anything more than enjoy my secret caress before, but now I fervently wished to make myself known to her. I wanted her to recognize my existence within the chair, and as laughably selfish as it is, I wanted her to love me. But how do I indicate such to her? If she were to suddenly learn that someone was hiding within her chair, she would surely call for her husband or the maids in her surprise, and all my plans would come to nothing, and I would face the judgment of the law for a heinous crime. And so I endeavored to provide her with the most comfortable seat that I could so that she would think fondly of this chair. As an artist, she doubtlessly possessed more sensitive faculties than others. I hoped that she would sense the life within the chair and feel a sense of love for it. Not a lump of matter, but that of a living creature. When she placed her weight upon my body, I strove to receive her as softly and comfortably as I could. When I sensed that she was tired, I would adjust the angle of my lap to shift her position, carefully moving just enough so that she would not notice. And when she dozed above me, I even so gently rocked my lap back and forth to simulate the motions of a cradle. Perhaps my efforts were rewarded, or perhaps it was simply wishful thinking, but it seemed that recently she started to show love for my chair. She sank her body into my chair with the sweet affection that a mother shows for her infant, or a maiden shows in her lover's embrace. For my own part, the feeling of her moving around atop my lap was soon deeply familiar to me as well. Thus, my passions grew day by day. And now, at last, dear madam, dear, sweet madam, at last I found myself entertaining a truly outrageous wish far beyond my lot in life. I thought to myself that I could but once gaze upon the face of my lover and exchange words with her. I could die a happy man. Dear madam, no doubt that you have long since realized the truth of the matter. The one that I refer to as my lover, and I hope dearly that you would forgive this presumptuousness, is none other than yourself. From that day that your husband purchased my chair from the warehouse in Wine City, I have been here, a miserable man with nothing to offer but my love to you. Dear madam, if you would be so kind as to grant my one request, could I ask that you meet me, just once? Would you please offer just one word of comfort to this miserable, abominable wretch? I ask for nothing more. I am simply too wretched and loathsome to do so. Please, Please, would you grant this last ardent wish of a truly unhappy man? I left from the residence last night in order to write this letter. It was simply too dangerous for me to ask you this in person, nor could I bring myself to do it in any case. As you read this letter, I will be wandering the grounds around the manor, pale with anxiety as I wait. If, by chance, you should deign to grant this ever so brazen request, place your handkerchief upon the dianethus of the window of your study, and with that sign, I will wait at the gate of the manor as simply another visitor. Thus, the curious letter concluded with a fervent request. By the midpoint of the letter, Yoshiko had already been seized with a horrible premonition and turned deathly pale. She stood up unconsciously and ran from the study, leaving the dreaded armchair behind as she entered the Japanese-style living room. She thought to tear it up and throw away the horrible letter without reading the rest, but something stayed her hand, and so she sat down at the little desk in the living room and continued to read. And her premonition proved true. What a horrible thing to learn. That armchair which she had sat upon day after day had contained a strange man within it all this time.
Mo. How very delightful.
Yoshiko felt a chill run down her back as her body began to tremble. She stood there in a daze, unable to fully comprehend the situation and completely helpless for a solution. Examine the chair. No, she could hardly even bear the thought. Even if the chair no longer held its usual resident, there was no doubt in her mind that some filthy residue remained, whether from his meals or from his body. Madam, a letter sent for you. She gave a start and turned to see a member of the maid staff standing there with an envelope that had just arrived. Yoshiko took the envelope from her and reflexively moved to open it to retrieve its contents when she saw the address upon it. She recoiled in horror, the envelope falling from her hands. There, in a hand identical to that which had written the loathsome letter from earlier, was written her own name. And for a long time she debated whether she would open the envelope or not. At last, she tore open the seal and, with trembling fingers, withdrew the letter from within and read its contents. It was a remarkably short letter, but even so, the first few lines that composed it were enough to give Yoshiko another surprise. I beg that you forgive my impudence in sending this sudden letter. I have always enjoyed reading your works. Enclosed in a separate envelope is a rough manuscript of my own writing. If you would be so kind as to read it and provide your honest critique of it, I would be honored beyond words. For certain reasons, I have taken the liberty of posting the manuscript before writing this letter, and so I assume that by the time that you are reading this, you will have read the manuscript already. What did you think of it? If my little ramblings would have left you with a lasting impression, then I would certainly be pleased to hear it. I intentionally omitted the title of this manuscript, but I am thinking of a title now. The Human Chair. I hope you can look past my rudeness. Sincerely yours.
Good morning, sir.
Special Agent Miggs, good morning. Are you ready for this?
Not really, sir. If I'm being honest, I feel like we've been working on this case forever. I haven't slept properly in weeks.
Me either, Miggs. Me either. How long have we got left on the clock?
We have 2 hours before we have to release the suspect.
2 hours, huh? That means we've had her for, 22 hours already. And she's given us nothing. Zilch, squat, not a single goddamn thing. I don't know. I
feel like we need a new angle, Migs. She's clearly immune to interrogation, or at least she thinks she is.
I agree, sir. Sir? I do have an idea. A new angle. It's unorthodox.
At this point, unorthodox might be our only option. So, are you gonna tell me what this idea is, or do I have to read your mind?
Not yet, sir, if that's okay with you. I don't want to spoil the surprise.
I don't like surprises, Migs. Surprises are for children at Christmas. This is a murder investigation. You do understand that, right?
I know, sir. It's just better if you don't know anything yet. Trust me.
Well, just bear in mind that if we do not get what we need from the suspect in the next 2 hours, she will be released. And those 5 men she is undoubtedly responsible for will never be found. I don't want that on my conscience, and neither should you. So whatever your idea is, I hope it's a damn good one.
So do I, sir.
You ready?
As I'll ever be.
Then let's get on with it, shall we?
Sir, before I warn you, I don't know how much you know, but she can be... the suspect can be very difficult. Classic narcissistic tendencies, inappropriate jokes, sexual innuendos, doesn't take anything seriously. She's a bit too clever for her own good. You know the type.
I have 4 teenage daughters, Migs, and a wife on the brink of divorce. I wrote the book on difficult. Shall we?
If you say so. Let's do it. Well, it's about time, Detective. Hello, Elizabeth. That's Special Agent Miggs to you, not Detective. I went to FBI school, remember? Oh, silly me. I'm sorry. Hello, Special Agent Miggs. Who's your fancy new friend? He's very handsome. Is he single?
I am Special Agent in Charge Barney Chilton. May I call you Elizabeth?
Special Agent in Charge, huh? Special Agent in Charge of what exactly? A huge wang?
My job is simply to...
Oh my god, I'm not actually interested, please. I just think you're cute, that's all. I bet he's hung like a baboon, am I right? I bet it goes halfway down his leg. That's why he's standing like that, slightly off balance. He's like a tripod, and I would definitely mount my camera on him if you catch my drift.
It is important that we establish the formalities before proceeding. May I call you Elizabeth?
No, you may not.
I see.
Special Agent Miggs is allowed to call me Elizabeth because we have established a nice relationship in the 22 long hours I've been in this stupid-ass room. She has earned my trust. You have not. I met you 5 seconds ago, Mr. Big Dick. Miss Starling will work just fine for you. Thanks.
As you like, Ms. Starling. Now, if you're ready, I'm going to start recording the session.
Whatever.
For the tape, it is presently 10:15 on June 26th, 2020. Those present at this interview include Special Agent Scarlett Miggs, along with myself, Special Agent in Charge Barney Chilton. We are currently at the Old Pine Street Station, Baltimore, here to interview one Ms. Elizabeth Starling. Now, just so that we can be sure for our report, your last name is spelled Starling. Is that correct?
Not quite.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, sorry about that. My name is not actually Elizabeth Starling. That's a mistake.
What? But...
Oh gosh, this is awkward. I'm sorry. It's not my name. My real name, anyway? The one on my birth certificate is Santa Claus. It's spelled S-A-N-T. You're not doing yourself any favors, Elizabeth. Stop this nonsense and spell out your name for the recording, please. Fine. F-U-C-K. I know you're stalling, Elizabeth. Please just spell out your full name and we can move on. It's not difficult. Your name is Elizabeth Irma Starling. Is that or is that not correct? You used to be fun, Migs. Fine, correct. And it's spelled STARLING. Go fuck yourself.
And your address is 125 Hightower Gardens.
Yes, but you know what? You've been there, haven't you? You've been in my apartment.
Also present in the room is Ms. Starling's attorney, Ronnie Crawford, of the Crawford & Time law firm, West Street, Baltimore. Please repeat your name for the tape, Mr. Crawford.
I am indeed Ronnie Crawford, Miss Starling's legal representation. Last name spelled CRAWFORD.
Oh, isn't it fun? He can spell too.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Now then, Ms. Starling. You have been arrested on suspicion of unlawful kidnapping, imprisonment, torture, and potential murder of 5 men, all of whom have been missing for between 3 weeks and 6 months. Witness statements have placed you with each man at various points immediately prior to their disappearances. All men appear to have subsequently vanished without a trace, with the notable exception of their right arms. All 5 of which were found dismembered and wrapped in plastic and perfectly preserved in a very large chest freezer in your apartment. But we'll get to that in a moment. Do you understand the charges?
I do.
Well, with the formalities out of the way, why don't we have a nice little chat about those 5 missing men, And I'm especially keen to hear about the frozen armsicles that you had saved in your apartment for Midsummer's Day. What did you plan to do with them exactly? Make jam? Decorate the walls and turn them into exciting new coat hooks? Frame them for posterity?
Are these rhetorical questions, Special Agent in Charge?
Tell me about the body parts we found in the freezer in your apartment.
I could tell you. I'd want something in return, though.
My client has been advised that she is in no way obligated to make any kind of deal with you, as this would assume some sort of culpability. At this time, my client might best be advised to exercise her right to silence.
It's okay, Crawford. I got this.
Miss Starling, I strongly advise that you don't.
I got this.
Do you really think that you're in a position to fuck with us, Ms. Starling? You were under arrest on suspicion of multiple murders. You were the city's first suspected female serial killer. The press has already dubbed you the butcher bitch of Baltimore. Do you know how hard it's going to be to find an unbiased jury now that your face is all over the news? You won't stand a chance in court. It's not the strongest defense, is it? A plea bargain is the best you can hope for at this stage. If I were you, I'd come clean and try to arrange a reduced sentence based on your cooperation. I could help you negotiate with that, I have that in my power. And lucky for you, the death sentence has already been abolished in Maryland. This, of course, means you're looking at a lengthy sentence, several consecutive life sentences. I expect, unless you cooperate.
You don't have to answer that, Elizabeth. My client doesn't have to answer that. It's purely conjecture. And you're trying to pressure her into giving away something by using your tacky FBI mind games. It is not ethical. I object for the tape.
Shh, Crawford, please let me handle this. And yeah, actually, Mr. Special Agent in Charge of Huge Wang, I do know. I know what they call me. I also know the clock is running out for you. In a few hours, you'll have to let me go. I have a little bargaining power now. So yeah, I want something in return. Exchange economy. The exchange of one scarce resource for another. Elizabeth, do you understand the serious nature of the crimes you're being accused of? There are 5 men missing, 5 families that those men belong to. Surely they deserve to know what happened to their loved ones. Surely those men deserve proper funerals. Your sentencing will be easier on you if you tell us what happened. We might even be able to plead with the DA, get a reduced charge if you cooperate. Like my colleague says. Maybe. Maybe. But that doesn't change the fact that I've got something you need, does it? And I was told throughout the course of my life to give nothing away for nothing. You want information, I want something in return. Simple. You aren't half as clever as you think you are, Elizabeth. Do you know that? I don't really care what you think of me, pig. I want something.
What? What is it that you want?
I want a kiss.
A kiss.
A kiss from you. With tongue. No tongue, no deal.
I'm not going to kiss you, Ms. Starling. You're sitting here because we think you murdered 5 men and hid or disposed of their bodies. Somehow, kissing is not on the agenda. Murderous, butchering psychopaths are not really my type.
Suit yourselves, but we've been through this all before, haven't we? You've searched my apartment, you've searched my car, you've bugged my phones, you've had me followed, and you don't have a single scrap of evidence actually linking me to any of these unfortunate disappearances, apart from the limbs in my freezer, which, to be perfectly honest with you, is entirely circumstantial evidence, isn't it? You don't have any proof that those human arms were even put there by me. There's no DNA evidence linking me to them, not directly. Several people have access to my apartment. My cleaner, my boyfriend, my mother, my neighbor, he has a spare key. You've got nothing on me. That's why I've been here for 22 hours already. If you had something, you would have brought it in by now. I'm not stupid. I am, however, partial to tall, dark, handsome men in uniform. Would it be so terrible, Special Agent in Charge? Just one quick kiss. It'll be over before you know it. I'll be gentle.
This is ridiculous.
Okay, well, in that case, as my attorney recommends, I exercise my right to be silent.
You knew these men, Ms. Starling. We have video footage of you leaving the Old Duke Bar on Kings Avenue with each and every one of those missing men in the days prior to their disappearances. We have multiple eyewitness accounts that put you in their company. And once more, those accounts all say the same thing. That you got those men stone drunk, each one of them, and then left with them and only them. And not a single one of them was ever seen again. That is enough evidence to put you on trial.
So I like to drink. Sue me. That footage and those accounts prove nothing except that I met those men once, that's all. It's a big city, but a small world, Special Agent in Charge. I could have just as easily bumped into you at that bar. Being seen with someone doesn't mean I killed them, does it? Besides, that could have been any woman with long brown hair that looks like me. I bet it's not clear footage. I bet those eyewitnesses couldn't point me out in a lineup. I think you're right, Elizabeth. What? I said, I think you're right. I don't think we're gonna get very far by going over the same questions again and again, are we? We've been here long enough already, as you've said. Hours and hours, in fact. So, I think it's time we try something new, don't you? Like what? Torture? Are you hiding some thumbscrews under my shirt, Miggs? Are you going to waterboard me, rough me up a little? Actually, I might quite enjoy that. I've always wondered. Excuse me for a moment, please. Well, where are you going, sugar? You didn't even say goodbye after all we've been through. Well, this is fun, isn't it? I wonder where she's gone. Maybe she's run away. Maybe she's finally had enough and turned in her badge, given up her firearm, and is currently halfway to Reno. Oh, never mind, she's back. Oh, and she's brought another friend. Oh, goody.
Welcome back.
Thank you. For the tape, this is Special Agent Miggs, now back in the room. We have been joined in the interview suite by Mr. Julian Krendler. Please confirm for the tape that this is your name, sir.
Yes, that's correct. My name is Julian Krendler. That's Krendler.
Oh, find someone new to play with?
Why was I not informed of this? This is typical police misdirection. I was not informed that there would be anyone else present at this interview today. Agent Miggs and I quite frankly find this all in very poor taste.
Oh, lighten up, Buttercup. It's rather nice to have a new face in the room, especially as frigid Bridget over here is no fun at all.
Elizabeth, just remember, whoever this is, you are under no obligation to speak to them.
Please sit down, Mr. Krenler. Our time is limited.
Oh, thank you. I thought you'd never ask.
You know what? This stage isn't an interrogation. It's nothing but showboating. I'll be issuing a complaint to the district attorney about this.
That's up to you, Crawford. But all I'm doing is my job, and sometimes that involves using slightly unorthodox methods.
Such as? Are you going to hypnotize her or something?
Well, actually, yes. In a manner of speaking.
What?
This is the best thing I've heard all year. You're going to hypnotize a confession out of me? Is that even legal? I don't think we need to get quite so specific about the legalities, Elizabeth. Mr. Krenler is simply assisting us in this investigation and with this interview. Think of him as a consultant of sorts. And I like to remind you that there are 5 missing men out there, all of whom deserve better. To that end, I'm just doing my job by exhausting all avenues of inquiry. Well, I'm afraid with this particular avenue, you're wasting your time. I'm immune to hypnosis.
I'm sorry, what?
You heard me. I'm immune to hypnosis. Trust me, someone tried it on me once. Try me.
Well, if you insist. When I snap my fingers, you will bark like a dog.
This is ridiculous. Do you know how desperate you all look? This is absurd.
Oh my god, would you shut up? You're a serious mood mangler, did you know that? Look, don't you get it? These guys have nothing on me. That's why they've pulled out this last desperate tactic, and I'm here for it. Let me tell you, I am absolutely here for it. I want the silly man to hypnotize me, okay? Or at least give it his best shot. Go sit on a nail or something.
I'm trying to help you, Elizabeth. This is what I'm paid to do. Can't you see that?
Well then, let me help you out with that. You're fired, okay?
What?
I'm not speaking Swahili, am I? I said you're fired. Now go away. I've got this.
But you can't do that.
I just did. Your existence is giving me a headache. Honestly, go stand in the corner, okay? There's a good lawyer.
I'm not going to let you sabotage this for yourself. I'm staying.
So stay quietly. Can you let the grown-ups talk? That's a dear.
This is fucking unbelievable.
Sorry, Krenler, was it?
Julian Krenler, yes. Nice to meet you, Sunbeam.
I'm sorry, what did you just call me?
I said, hello, Sunbeam.
How do you know that name?
I know a lot of things about you, Elizabeth. What's going on here exactly?
Shh, just let him do his thing. Sunbeam is a nickname my mother used to give me when I was little.
I know you were afraid of your mother, weren't you, Elizabeth? What happened to her barking like a dog?
Mama used to beat me with a leather belt if I was too clumsy, slow, or if I spoke back. My brother and I, she said that love was meant to hurt. Sometimes she would use a shoe or a stick. The stick was the worst. It had a knob at the end. I remember that knob.
She did other terrible things to you, didn't she, Sunbeam?
Real terrible things. Sometimes when I was sleeping, she would stub out her cigarette on my arm just because she could. I've got the scars. Hey, fuck you. I'm not falling for your mind games. I told you I'm immune to hypnosis. See? I told you. I fucking told you I'm rough, 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 rough.
Jesus. Migs, what the hell is this?
Ruff,
We
ruff,
have less than an hour and a half left on the clock. What
Ruff.
possible good is this stupidity going to do? This is beneath us, Migs.
Trust the process, sir. Ruff, ruff, ruff. Ruff, ruff, ruff.
What the hell is this? I mean, have you all lost your minds? Put her back right now. Make her normal again at once.
I fail to see how any of this is helpful, Migs. Your friend had better get on with whatever he's doing pretty quick.
I'm sure he knows what he's doing, sir.
So, are you winning it out, Miss Starling? Or do I need to demonstrate my skills further? No, I'll take that as a yes. So when I snap my fingers, you will no longer be a dog. You will be a small Parisian child. You like ice cream and the color red. Your name is Fleur. Ready?
Bonjour, je m'appelle Fleur. J'adore la couleur rouge. Puis-je avoir de la glace?
Seriously, who the fuck is this person? How did you find this guy?
Oh mon Dieu, il porte du rouge.
Oh my god, I'm dreaming. That's it. I'm in a strange cheese dream.
Well, actually, sir, he got in touch with me. He said he'd heard we were having problems cracking our suspect, and he had prior experience with difficult customers before. He said he worked on the New Jersey jerk-off case last year. I checked his references, obviously did a background check, and then I thought, well, why not? Consultants are allowed in certain circumstances, and we don't need a confession to stand up in court. We just need to know where the bodies are. Once we have them, we'll find DNA evidence linking her to the murders. I know it, I'm sure of it. And once we have that, we can leverage a real confession out of her in another interview. We can edit this part out of the tape, nobody will know. At any rate, it's nice to wipe that smug smile off her face.
I can't believe I'm hearing this. This is psychological torture. I'm going to file a report.
Not if we get him to hypnotize you first, you won't.
What?
You heard me, now shush!
Quinler, I think that's enough. Time is running out. Let's get to the point, shall we? As you wish. Now, Elizabeth, when I snap my fingers again, you will sleep. You will no longer be a dog with a child Fleur. I'll ask you some questions while you sleep, and you will answer as honestly and truthfully as possible. Do you understand?
Oui, monsieur.
All right then. 3, 2, 1, and sleep. This is freaking me out a little, I must admit.
Well, you're not alone there, boss.
Elizabeth, can you tell me who put these severed arms in your freezer?
I did.
And what about the arms those belong to, Elizabeth? Are they dead?
Yes. They're all dead. Bingo! There it is!
I wouldn't get too excited. Not yet. There's something incredibly off here. How did they die, Elizabeth?
I killed them. I drugged them and kidnapped them and kept them chained up in an old barn on my dad's farm, and I just didn't feed them anymore. They starved to death.
Why? Why did you do that, Elizabeth?
Mom used to chain me and my brother up in that barn when we were little, for days. No food, no water. She said she was character building. She said love was supposed to hurt sometimes. The rats would chew on our toes while we slept. I killed one once. I was so hungry. My brother and I, we shared it. We ate it raw. It tasted bad. Like love.
And then what, Elizabeth? What did you do with the men that starved to death? What did you do with the bodies?
I know you know what I do with the bodies.
You ate them, didn't you?
Yes. I took the bodies apart and I boiled them, and I ate the best parts. Cheeks, buttocks, thigh meat. I knew it was the easiest way to dispose of them. Also, I get hungry a lot. I don't like being hungry.
What? What the fuck?
She ate them?
This is illegal, and it must stop right this instant. She is incriminating herself under duress. She doesn't even know what she's saying. My client isn't even conscious. You can see that. Besides, it's clearly absurd. Nobody can eat 5 men. Look at her. She's tiny. How would she? How would she fit all them in?
I have a very fast metabolism.
What about the bones, Elizabeth? What did you do with the bones? You didn't eat those.
I ground the bones and parts I didn't want up in the wood chipper and mixed them in with the pig feed. The pigs ate the bones. Pigs are very efficient.
This is ridiculous. My client didn't eat anyone. She's under suggestion. None of this will be admissible in court. None of it. Stop this at once.
Why did you keep the arms, Elizabeth?
Snacks. I keep them for snacks.
Holy fuck.
I feel sick.
Love is meant to hurt, or at least that's what Mom said. Remember how she would untie us and we'd be so weak we couldn't stand? We just leaned on each other and she would pull us into her arms, squeeze us tight, until we thought our bones would break and we'd cry. Remember that?
Miggs, who is she talking to? Krendler? What is he? I remember Sunbeam.
Remember how it felt when we finally killed her? Remember?
I remember. You ready to get out of here?
Oh, fuck yeah, I thought you'd never ask.
Do you two know each other? Is this a setup?
Wait. Earlier, didn't she say something about a brother?
She did. Oh, fuck, she did. No, he's not Julian Krendler. He's Frank Starling, her brother. Shit! Why didn't I see this before? Jesus, for an FBI agent, you're incredibly fucking gullible, you know that, Miggs? But it's been fun playing with you. I'm almost tempted to tell you all about those other men.
I don't feel like this room is a safe place to be in anymore. I'm leaving.
Wait, all those men? There are only 5 that we know. 5? Not 5 men, Inspector. More like 35 that I can remember. 35 men? Oh, and 1 woman. And 1 woman? Who?
I agree with the lawyer. We need to get out of here, Miggs, and now.
Well, Mother, of course. Of course. Did you really think it would be that easy, Miggs? You know nothing about me. How I was raised, what I went through. How do you think I got through the endless horrors of my childhood? My brother here, he hypnotized me, made it all better. He's always had a gift. Got to the point, though, where the horror was too much. Powerful hypnosis stopped working, but by then, I had a new outlet. Revenge, murder, pain, love, all the same thing. Oh, by the way, can we dispatch the lawyer? He's really getting on my nerves.
No, with pleasure. When I snap my fingers, Mr. Crawford, your heart will stop beating, okay?
Wait. No. It fucking won't. I'm just doing my job. I was trying to help.
If you kill us, the whole state will come after you and the Bureau. So naive, Miggs. I don't want to kill you. There's no fun in that. It'd be like shooting a fish in a barrel. You're so desperately earnest and good. It's just... Ew, no. We're not going to kill you. We're just gonna make you forget. What? Take it away, bro.
So, on the count of 3, I'm going to snap my fingers, and when I do, both you, Special Agent Miggs, and Special Agent in Charge, Chilton, will forget about everything about this case. You'll forget about the bodies you've seen, me and Elizabeth, the farm, and the butcher bitch of Baltimore. You will go straight to your desks, type up a letter of resignation, step down from the bureau, and have no memory of this interview. And also delete the recording of this session. I told you we should have gotten the fuck out of here, Miggs. 3. Can't seem to get the door open. Why won't the door open? Hey! Help!
I left my service gun in the next room. Fuck! Elizabeth, I'm begging you, please do not do this.
Hey! Open the door! We need help in here!
Goodbye, Special Agent Miggs. Goodbye, Special Agent in Charge, Chilton.
1.
Another town, another bunch of dumb FBI agents. Ugh.
Nah, we're not going to really let them retire, are we?
Of course not, numbnuts. We're gonna make them kill themselves like we always do. Ready?
Yes. So, fight to the death with bare hands, strangulation, shooting, what takes your fancy today?
Oh, I don't mind your choice. Although it has been a while since I've seen a good eye gouging if you're taking creative direction, that is.
I like it. As you wish, Sunbeam.
I wish you would stop calling me that.
3, 2, 1.